Welcome, dear listeners, to a new episode of Decoding MENA. Dr. Yasser, in the past few hours, we've witnessed a major development. Hamas has agreed to the truce proposed by U.S. President Trump. But many questions still demand clear answers. What are the actual terms of this truce? Who stands to benefit the most, Hamas or Israel? Is this truly the end of the war or merely a warrior's pause? And what's behind the sharp dispute between Netanyahu and the Israeli chief of staff?
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate these important questions that are on everyone's minds.
Let's start with the basics. What are the main terms of the truce?
The first and most significant clause is a 60-day ceasefire guaranteed by three countries: the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar. But here's the key question. What kind of guarantee is this? Military or diplomatic? If Israel violates the agreement, will these countries take military action? Will they impose sanctions? The nature of the guarantee remains ambiguous and is not clearly defined in the agreement.
And what about the hostages? That's been a central issue since the beginning.
The second clause concerns the release of hostages. Hamas currently holds 58 hostages, both alive and deceased. They will release 28 of them in phases over the 60-day period. 8 living hostages on day 1, 5 bodies on day 7, another 5 on day 30, 2 living hostages on day 50, and 8 more bodies on day 60. This means Hamas will retain 30 hostages as leverage for final negotiations.
And what about humanitarian aid? That's the lifeline for the besieged population.
This part is complex. The agreement states that 600 aid trucks will enter daily, 50 carrying fuel and 300 destined for northern Gaza. But this implies that residents will return to the north, which directly contradicts Netanyahu's plan to evacuate and depopulate that area.
That brings us to the internal conflict between Netanyahu and the chief of staff. Tell us more.
Israeli media leaked details of a heated meeting between Netanyahu and chief of staff, Herzi Halevi. Netanyahu insists on evacuating northern Gaza and relocating its population to the south. The chief of staff responded bluntly, "You're asking us to either implement a displacement plan we can't enforce or to govern Gaza militarily, which is unfeasible. The army cannot control 2 million Palestinians." Netanyahu fired back, "I don't want to govern Gaza militarily, but I also cannot pull out and leave Hamas in its tunnels. This war will only end with the elimination of Hamas."
That reveals deep contradictions within the Israeli position.
Exactly. Netanyahu still aims to eliminate Hamas and depopulate northern Gaza, making the aid clause questionable. No one is certain Israel will actually honor it.
Who will be responsible for distributing the aid?
Israel wanted the Gaza Foundation, a body run by Israeli and American intelligence, to manage aid distribution. But Hamas insisted that the UN and the Red Crescent take over. The agreement ultimately sided with Hamas for 2 key reasons. First, the Gaza Foundation used facial recognition systems to identify and track Hamas members. And second, it failed so catastrophically that over 500 Palestinians were killed in so-called safe zones during aid deliveries.
And what about the Israeli army? Will it withdraw from Gaza?
That's where things get tricky. The U.S. stated that Israel will halt offensive operations, but only intermittently. Israeli airstrikes will pause for 10 hours a day and 12 hours on hostage release days. This means airstrikes may still occur for up to 14 hours daily. The question remains, will they strike or not? The agreement does not explicitly prohibit it. As for ground forces, they will remain stationed in the north, center, and south. The clause mentions a redeployment and withdrawal, meaning a temporary pullback only from areas where hostages are released, followed by a return.
Strategically speaking, who benefits the most from this truce?
The clear winner, at least in the short term, is Israel. It will recover half the hostages held by Hamas under a single agreement in exchange for nothing more than a temporary ceasefire and humanitarian access. There's no requirement for the release of Palestinian prisoners in return.
And what about Hamas? Why did they accept such harsh terms?
Hamas only made 3 demands during negotiations: humanitarian aid, Israeli troop withdrawal, and a permanent ceasefire. This speaks volumes about the dire situation they're in. Most of their leadership has been killed. Gaza is in ruins. Over 70% of the territory is under Israeli control. More than 2 million Palestinians are displaced, and the death toll is nearing 600,000.
That's a dramatic shift from their original demands.
At the war's outset, Hamas demanded the release of all Palestinian prisoners, the implementation of a 2-state solution, and the declaration of a Palestinian state. Some leaders even called for the full liberation of all Palestinian land. Now, the sole demand is to end the war. Hamas, which once refused to give up governing Gaza, now says, bring in a technocratic government. Govern Gaza however you like. Just end the war.
What can we expect in the coming days?
2 major developments are worth watching. First, Netanyahu is scheduled to meet Trump on Monday. He will likely request stealth fighter jets, bunker buster bombs, the inclusion of Syria in normalization agreements, a delay in Israel's withdrawal from southern Syria, the exclusion of Turkey from acquiring stealth jets, and U.S. approval for the annexation of the West Bank. Second, a recent poll shows 65% of Israelis want to halt Netanyahu's trial. Meanwhile, UAE-based Sky News hosted opposition leader Yair Lapid for an interview directed at Arab audiences, suggesting that a new Israeli political setup may be in the making.
What about the long-term strategic objectives of the war?
None of Hamas's objectives have been achieved. The only remaining hope lies with Saudi Arabia, which insists on a 2-state solution and the recognition of a Palestinian state in exchange for normalizing ties with Israel. On the other hand, Israel has used the Gaza War as a springboard to occupy parts of southern Lebanon and Syria, strike the Houthis in Yemen, disrupt navigation in the Suez Canal, and launch multiple attacks on Iran. Today, the Israeli army operates in the airspace over Lebanon, Syria, Iran, and Yemen. All of this has been accomplished after the Gaza War, not before.
Does this mean that Hamas has lost the war strategically?
Israel has eliminated Hamas's leadership: Ismail Haniyeh, Yahya Sinwar, Mohammed Sinwar, Mohammed Daif, and others. It has executed a de facto partition of Gaza and is working to displace West Bank residents. They've accomplished everything except the mass expulsion of Gaza's population. That's the one objective they've failed to achieve so far.
So does the truce mean the war is over?
The truce will be implemented, yes, because Israel needs it to secure hostage releases. But does the truce mark the end of the war? That remains to be seen in the coming days. Let's not forget this key point. Hamas fought Israel alone. Repeat it. Hamas fought Israel alone.
Dr. Yasser, as we wrap up this critical discussion, could you summarize the current situation?
We are facing a painful reality. A resistance movement tried to liberate its land, but due to miscalculations, the land was devastated and its people displaced. The only demand now, from Gazans and across the Arab world, is to restore the pre-war status quo. Ambitions have shrunk so drastically that all we wish for now is survival, that those still alive remain alive, that people can find food, clean water, a safe place to sleep, and a hospital to receive care. The most important question remains: were the October 7 attacks a failed liberation war or a successful armed uprising that revived the Palestinian cause?
Thank you, Dr. Yasser, for this honest and in-depth analysis. Dear listeners, this has been Decoding MENA. We continue to follow developments in the region with the insight and depth you deserve. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Decoding MENA, and activate the bell icon to stay updated on our latest analyses and expert programming. See you in the next episode.